On the cold night of November 17, 1978, in the quiet suburban town of Speedway, Indiana, something happened inside a small fast food restaurant that would become one of America's most haunting, unsolved mysteries.
The restaurant was called Burger Chef, a once popular burger chain that looked no different from the dozens of other brightly lit burger spots scattered across the Midwest.
Families came for cheap meals, teenagers worked late shifts for pocket money, and the parking lot usually sat calm beneath glowing neon signs.
But on that Friday night, 4 young employees walked into work and never came home. At first, nothing seemed unusual.
17-year-old assistant manager Jayne Friedt was known for being responsible, organized, and dependable.
Alongside her were 16-year-old Ruth Shelton, 16-year-old Libby Mendenhall, and 20-year-old Daniel Davis.
Customers later recalled seeing the restaurant operating normally that evening. Orders were taken, burgers were served, and the employees smiled through another routine shift. But sometime after closing, everything changed. Just after midnight, a customer arrived and noticed the front door was unlocked. That alone was strange.
When they stepped inside, they found no employees behind the counter. The cash registers were open. Coins were scattered across the floor. A safe appeared emptied. One employee's purse sat abandoned. Yet there was no sign of violence.
It looked less like a massacre and more like the employees had simply vanished into thin air. Police initially treated it like a robbery gone wrong. Investigators believed the young workers had probably stolen money and fled. It was a devastating mistake that would waste precious hours.
Officers cleaned parts of the restaurant before evidence could properly be collected. Potential fingerprints were destroyed. Footprints disappeared. Witnesses were not immediately tracked down.
By the time authorities realized something far darker had happened, the trail had already gone cold. Parents waited anxiously for calls that never came.
Morning came, and the Caucasian male and female teenagers were still unaccounted for. Days later,
the scene was nightmare fuel. Jayne Friedt had been stabbed twice in the chest. Daniel Davis had been shot execution style.
Ruth Shelton was strangled with a chain. Libby Mendenhall suffered blunt force trauma before being strangled. Their bodies were...
The brutality shocked even hardened investigators. This was no simple robbery. Someone had abducted 4 innocent young people, transported them across county lines, and murdered them in cold blood. The question that terrified Indiana was simple. Who could do something so monstrous, and why? Rumors spread through Speedway like wildfire.
Some believed a gang was responsible. Others suspected a drifter or serial killer passing through town. Fear swallowed the community.
Parents suddenly feared letting teenagers work night shifts. Young employees across Indiana quit fast food jobs.
The Burger Chef murders became national news because it shattered the illusion of suburban safety.
That was what made the crime so chilling. Investigators soon developed theories about how the abduction unfolded. Perhaps they acted calm at first, pretending to be customers. Maybe they displayed a weapon only after the doors were locked. The restaurant itself showed surprisingly little violence, suggesting the victims complied initially, hoping they would survive if they cooperated. That detail makes the story even more horrifying. At some point during those final moments, those teenagers likely believed they would make it home alive. But the killers had other plans.
Witnesses later reported seeing suspicious individuals near the restaurant that night. One man claimed he saw multiple people near the Burger Chef parking lot shortly before midnight.
Another described a strange car parked nearby. But the accounts were inconsistent, fragmented, and difficult to verify.
Different police departments argued over jurisdiction. Evidence handling was sloppy. Leads disappeared into filing cabinets.
In the years that followed, many investigators would privately admit the case suffered from devastating early mistakes that may have permanently destroyed the chance to solve it.
Yet despite the failures, disturbing clues continued emerging. One witness came forward claiming they had seen the 4 employees.
Another theory suggested the murders may have involved drug activity or local criminals connected to the Speedway area.
Some investigators believe the victims may have recognized one or more abductors, which explained why they were all killed.
But no theory ever fully explained the extreme brutality. Why shoot one victim, stab another, and strangle the others? Why leave so little evidence behind? Every answer created more questions. As years passed, suspects emerged and faded away like ghosts.
One of the most discussed theories involved a local gang known for robberies and violence during the late 1970s.
There were whispers about a robbery crew that used police scanners and targeted businesses after closing hours. According to some reports,
but witnesses changed stories. Some suspects died, others denied involvement. Nothing could ever be proven beyond doubt.
Some investigators began comparing the Burger Chef murders to other unsolved killings across the Midwest. The late 1970s were a terrifying era in America.
Serial killers haunted headlines nationwide. The idea that a traveling predator could have targeted the employees was not impossible.
Yet no definitive link was ever established. The Burger Chef case remained isolated, trapped in uncertainty. Families of the victims lived through decades of agony. Imagine waking up every morning knowing your child left for a normal work shift and was never seen alive again. They watched investigators retire, witnesses disappear, and memories fade. But they never stopped searching for answers.
Some believed authorities focused on the wrong suspects. Others felt the case simply lost priority over time. Yet every anniversary reopened the wound.
What makes the Burger Chef murders especially haunting is how preventable the investigative failures may have been.
Surveillance cameras capture movements. Digital records create timelines. But in 1978, the restaurant was partially cleaned before forensic teams fully processed it.
Even the decision to initially treat the incident as a theft instead of an abduction delayed the emergency response during the most critical hours.
Maybe roadblocks could have intercepted the killers. Maybe witnesses would have remembered more details while events were fresh. Maybe evidence would have survived.
One particularly eerie aspect of the mystery involves the final moments inside the restaurant. Think about the silence.
The smell of grease still hanging in the air, fryers cooling down, music possibly playing softly in the background.
Perhaps one employee tries to stay calm while another silently panics. Maybe they exchange terrified glances, hoping this is only a robbery.
They are marched outside into the freezing Indiana night. Car doors open, engines start, and then the Burger Chef becomes empty forever.
No one truly knows what happened during the drive to the wooded area. Did the victims plead for their lives? Did someone attempt escape? Did the killers argue about what to do next?
Those terrifying final minutes remain hidden in darkness because the only people who know the truth are either dead or stayed silent for decades.
Podcasts revisited forgotten evidence. Documentaries examined overlooked suspects. Former detectives gave interviews revealing information never widely known before.
One retired investigator claimed the case was likely solved unofficially but lacked enough evidence for prosecution. Another suggested local criminal connections pointed strongly toward a group.
Yet official closure never came. In 2018,
authorities reviewed old files again, searching for anything missed decades earlier. The families desperately hoped technology,
but the years had taken their toll. Witnesses died, memories faded, physical evidence deteriorated. Time itself became the killer's greatest ally.
What continues to disturb investigators is the level of control shown during the crime.
This suggests the perpetrators were experienced criminals comfortable using violence. Some experts believe there had to be at least 2 killers involved.
That theory fits witness reports describing multiple suspicious men near the restaurant. Yet without arrests, the truth remains trapped behind speculation.
Speedway was a small community. Local criminals, former customers, acquaintances, sure, anyone could have walked into that restaurant without raising alarm.
If the employees recognized the offenders, they may have initially cooperated more easily, believing they would survive. But once the abductors realized they could be identified,
it is a horrifying possibility because it transforms the crime from random violence into calculated execution. Another terrifying detail, criminal profilers often study such differences carefully because they can reveal emotion, control, or personal rage. Why was Daniel Davis shot while the others were strangled or stabbed? Did one victim resist more aggressively? Did the killers lose control? Or were the methods chosen intentionally to terrorize the group?
In many ways, the Burger Chef murders symbolize an era before America fully understood serial violence and organized criminal psychology.
Communication systems between agencies were weaker. Forensic science was primitive compared to today. The killers exploited those weaknesses perfectly. They vanished into history without leaving enough evidence behind to expose them. And perhaps the most chilling thought of all is this. They may have attended family gatherings, held jobs, raised children, and smiled at neighbors while hiding the secret of what happened in those woods. Somewhere out there, someone likely carried the memory of that night for decades. Imagine the psychological horror of knowing the truth.
True crime experts often compare the Burger Chef murders to other infamous unsolved American cases because of its haunting mixture of randomness.
The crime feels almost motiveless, and that unpredictability makes it even scarier. Humans want explanations for evil.
But the Burger Chef case denies that comfort. 4 young people simply went with pure darkness.
Eventually, the original Burger Chef location closed and the building was demolished, but locals claimed the site carried a heavy feeling for years afterward.
People avoided talking about the murders at night. Employees at nearby businesses reportedly shared ghost stories and rumors.
The town became permanently connected to one terrible night in 1978. Someone recalls suspicious behavior after the murders. Someone finally feels guilty enough to speak. Yet cold case detectives refuse to completely give up because history's oldest mysteries can suddenly crack open.
Perhaps someday DNA evidence will identify a suspect.
The emotional core of the Burger Chef murders is what keeps the case alive in America's memory. Jayne Friedt, Ruth Shelton, Libby Mendenhall, they were regular young people living ordinary American lives. Their story resonates because it represents vulnerability everyone understands. Convenience stores and gas stations. Millions of parents have waited for children to return home from work. The Burger Chef case shattered the illusion that ordinary places are always safe. And maybe that is why the mystery still grips people nearly half a century later. It forces us to confront a terrifying reality, smiling like an ordinary customer, before dragging innocent lives into darkness never to return.